really hard to overcome the number of errors that we made in the first half. I mean, you dig yourself a hole like that, it's going to be really, really difficult to get out of. Extremely proud of the way our defense kept fighting with their back to the wall. Fourth down stop, a goal line stand to keep the game within reach. And obviously, making a change of quarterback in the second half, I think gave us kind of a fresh start, provided some energy on both sides of the ball. I thought the game, kind of looking at it in retrospect, was like a microcosm of the two team seasons. Fresno State has been very opportunistic, taking advantage of mistakes that are made by their opponent, and we've kind of been on the other end of the spectrum where we haven't been as opportunistic in terms of taking the ball away and things of that nature, and capitalizing on mistakes that the opponent makes, and we've been making the mistakes, and that's kind of what happened in the first half of that game. And I think, there's always consequences for actions, and you don't always see them early in the game, whether that's getting hits on the quarterback that late in the game show up as him making bad decisions, or sailing a ball and you get a tip or an overthrow that results in an interception, penalty yards that start to stack up, that start to affect field position, turnovers, not taking advantage of short fields. Those are all things that we did not do in the first half. And you look at it and you go, gosh, if it was just 2 turnovers, what's the game look like? We make the field goal that we missed, what's the game look like? And we don't get do-overs. But I was very proud of the way our guys competed in the second half. And obviously, I thought Carter operated, going into a tough situation, operated pretty well. And so kind of looking ahead now, we've got, I don't think it's just statistically, I think they are probably one of the best defenses in the conference. They're ahead in just about every category that you look at. Most importantly, they're averaging only giving up 12.6 yards per game. And so I think the talent level that I see on that defense is very impressive. I think you look at all 3 levels of the defense, their edges, 2 and 10 are both really good players. They're disruptive. They're active. They play the run as well as the pass. At the second level, Chambliss, number 12, like he's a stat machine. This guy's all over the field, does a tremendous job. Their safety, number 9, I mean, he is an aggressive, flow-fit, go-get-it type of guy, very active in the run game, but capable as a coverage guy as well. And they've got, I think, a really elite corner in number 1. So I see talent spread out through all 3 levels of this defense, and that's something that's going to be a challenge for us. I think that they don't play a lot of man-to-man. They're primarily a zone team, but they play together so well. The things that I think I see in this group that I really like to see in our guys too is you play with great vision, balance, and patience. But when you see it, you trigger, and that's kind of how these guys play. They play well together. They overlap. They create a lot of problems if they get you off schedule, because not unlike what we saw last week with Fresno State, they'll get into the upfronts. They'll play a little bit of zero. They kind of create some picture issues for you when they're popping guys off the front. So at least we had a little bit of work on that from a second and pass, third down standpoint on offense. I would say the word that I would describe this unit is big. They're big up front. This is easily the biggest offensive line in the Mountain West Conference. Their back is big, number 7. Their quarterbacks are big. They're 6'5", 230-pound guys, and they're long and rangy on the perimeter. Napier, number 2, really the offense kind of, a lot of it goes through him. I mean, he's got 20 more targets than anybody else on the roster, and so he's a guy that's very active. They'll move him around. They'll play him on the outside at X or Z. They'll play him in the slot. If you get single safety with him pressed, the ball's going to go to him, but he's got 14 and 17 that are also good targets down the field. I think the quarterback operates the RPO game really well and throws a good deep ball. I think that's the strength of what he does. And then they bring the other guy in to take some hits off of with some more quarterback run stuff. So I think that's interesting. And then on special teams, a really aggressive team. Last year, I think they faked 4 punts, were successful faking 4 punts. They're very aggressive getting after the punter. They play their best players on special teams. Those guys show up consistently, and I think that says a lot about the culture that they're building there. So this is a hot team that's played tremendous football against Cal, dominated Colorado State. It was in a tight game against Northern Illinois where they maybe didn't have their A game, but they were still able to find a way to get that win. And so this will be a real challenge for us with these guys coming to our place on Saturday night. Happy to take any questions. I think that, we're early in the week and we've had those discussions about how we're going to approach the quarterback position. I don't know that helps us to tell you who's going to be playing quarterback. I think that helps them. And so, I'll kind of leave it at that, we know that multiple guys are going to play and Carter's going to be one of them.
You do anticipate playing multiple quarterbacks in this game?
I think you'll still see some packages, yes.
What about it with Carter makes you feel comfortable playing a true freshman at quarterback? It's obviously a huge responsibility.
Well, we got a little bit of a body of work. It wasn't just a play here or play there. And clearly this has been something that, early on wasn't quite ready to operate the offense as a whole. We get into game 3, game 4, we start playing him a little bit in packages. We have an expanded package for him against Fresno. And then the way the game plays out, he's the right guy to go. And he was very poised. I think that was the thing that impressed me the most was we know what his talent level is, but he didn't change his demeanor. The fact that he was in the game, the situation didn't impact him at all. That was one of the things that, some of the offensive guys, line guys, listening to them talk a little bit, where they were just blown away by how poised he was in that moment. And so I thought that was a real positive.
What about a skill set kind of stood out to you in the recruiting process, and what have you seen since he got here this summer that makes you think he can be a really good quarterback at this level?
Well, he processes things really quickly. The ball comes out fast. He's got good arm talent. He can throw off platform. He can create outside the offense, and he's capable of running a +1 run game. So that really was a great fit for us from a recruiting standpoint. But you don't really know until you get a guy in the building and you start working with him on a day-to-day basis, and then you figure out hey, this guy's really smart, he's really poised to go along with some of those physical characteristics that we talked about.
That poise, is that something that can be taught, or is it just something he feels comfortable out there and confident in himself?
He's a very quiet kid, and still waters run deep sometimes, and I think he's self-aware. I think he's got good confidence without that becoming arrogance, and I think that really sets well with his teammates.
What did he give the offense when he went in there? Back-to-back touchdown passes, not something that you guys had seen a lot. It really did seem like there was a spark in that second half.
Yeah, well, I think the guys in the locker room that have seen him at practice every day, there's been a lot of wow moments going all the way back to fall camp with Carter, but there'd also been some, what is that type of moments, and I think that those have been getting less and less, and, how he throws the deep ball, how quickly he makes decisions and gets the ball out of his hands, his accuracy underneath. I think those are things that the teammates know, they've watched him, and so they're oh, okay, let's go. Let's do our job maybe a little bit better. Hey, we've got a true freshman back here. How can we support him? Whether that's the receivers running the routes more crisply, or laying out and trying to make a play on the ball, or offensive line having that little extra edge in terms of we've got to do our 1% or 2% more to help this guy take some pressure off of him, and I think that was helpful. Obviously,
Chuba's a very good runner, I guess. How would you analyze Carter in terms of his ability to be a threat running the ball in addition to
he's very capable. Very capable. He can operate our entire offense from that standpoint. But I think there's also times where, taking some of that off of him is helpful too. Whether that's taking a shot off him in the run game, or, letting him get a little breather there to kind of recompose and some of those types of things. So I think that's why, whether it's Wildcat stuff, whether it's multiple quarterbacks, whether it's, Chuba running some stuff in a series, those are all things that I think can still help our offense.
When you went back and watched the film, was there something that stood out that maybe you didn't see in the game just in terms of his play and the offense's response to him?
I think we just executed at a much higher level. There wasn't a big menu for him, so that probably helped him and helped from a play calling standpoint too, when you kind of go, okay, this is what we know he can operate, and let's not get off of this script. And I think that's, probably led to some of his comfort level, knowing that, hey, we weren't going to ask him to do a bunch of stuff that he hadn't repped during the course of the week, but he had a lot of reps on certain things because we had a big package for him going into this. And so I think that helped him to calm down and have good confidence about operating the menu that we had, and I think it helped David to call it for him too.
Is that one of the reasons maybe the job hadn't been turned over to him at this point, just because of the responsibility of running a full offense for a true freshman is not something that's easily acquired this early in a career?
Yeah, and he was behind. Even though he was here in the spring and he had done some good things, there were just elements of it that he wasn't quite ready to fully operate. Not because he wasn't capable of it, he just hadn't had the reps. And so, as we got, kind of things started going, we started stretching him and getting him some, hey, let's get a rack with him with the 2s here. All right, let's get a rack with him with the 1s here. And then as we started to continue on down this path, you start to realize, hey, this guy, let's give him a little bit more, let's give him a little bit more. And this was the week where he had the biggest volume in the game plan that he was responsible for operating through the week of practice. And so, it played out pretty well for him to be able to go operate those things in the game.
Looking at the running back position, I don't think we saw Herschel after his fumble. I guess, what is his, immediate future just in that lead back role along with Caleb?
Well, I think it's. I don't know if it's ever been lead back. I think it's kind of been hot hand a little bit. And I think that obviously when you put the ball on the ground, that's going to be problematic. But I also think Caleb had a really good feel. I mean, he got us some dirty yards. Like, it wasn't always clean, especially in the inside zone game. And I thought Caleb was playing really well. He was doing a good job in pass protection. Obviously, he caught the screen pass out of the backfield for the touchdown. And so just kind of felt like that was the way to go. Plus, getting a veteran player back there with a rookie quarterback where he's got a good feel for protection and he's got kind of a calm demeanor too. I think we just felt like that was the way to roll.
You still see a lot of carries for Herschel in the future? You got to earn that back with the fumbles?
I mean, you make your point, you move on.
Looking at the defense, I mean, it has played really well. I would say maybe like the last drive of a game, getting that final stop, whether it was Western Kentucky or Middle Tennessee or against Fresno, them holding the ball for 9 minutes. Have you noticed why that's happened? I mean, there's not a lot of margin for error for those guys, but it seems like all three of those games, they just couldn't get that last stop.
Well, I think a lot of that comes back to what I discussed at the beginning, where there's always consequences, right? There's a consequence for us having to play 45 snaps of defense in the first half in that game, and the consequence was we don't have quite as much gas in the tank at the end of the game. And I think all three of those games were kind of like that, right? Where we turn the ball over, we got to go play extra snaps. How many max effort back to the wall plays can you make in a game without the dam breaking a little bit? And I feel like really all three of those games were very similar in that regard, where we just didn't have the ball. We didn't possess the ball consistently enough on offense throughout the game to make sure that we were fresh and ready to go in the fourth quarter. But those are things that we definitely spend time on, like how we get into a 4-minute situation. What do we need to add here? We get into a 2-minute situation. What do we need to add here? Be more aggressive, those types of mindsets. And, the problem with being more aggressive, it's kind of because it's a double-edged sword, right? If you hit it right, you may create a negative play. If you don't, you may give them an explosive. And so that's kind of the give and take in those situations where, hey, we had 2 timeouts. Even if they get down into the red zone, we're going to be able to use these timeouts, maybe force them to kick a field goal. It's a touchdown game. And once they crossed the 50, that was kind of the mindset. And unfortunately, we weren't able to get that stop.
How would you describe how the defensive line has played so far this season?
They've been unbelievable. I mean, they played lights out. I think we've got, these kind of the yin and yang on the edge there. And we've got quality guys behind him in Miles and Sam Cook that can come in and spell those guys so that they can, try to maintain their ability to be as fresh as possible, especially for third downs. I think Thomas Whitty and Nelson Rapati and Logo had a tremendous game against Fresno. That 3-man rotation in there with Tanner Vaughn coming in and giving us the ability to swing in a couple of different positions. We're playing a lot of guys, and the guys that are playing are being productive.
The turnovers, I mean, multiple turnovers in every game this year. I mean, how frustrating is that as a coach? How do you address that? Because that seems like the thing that's holding you guys back.
Yeah, I mean, clearly that's the thing that's holding us back. And, you can kind of, Chuba's late a little bit on the wheel route to Kai, but even though that ends up being a turnover, you got him on the 1-yard line. So there's like, now at least you can maintain some field position advantage. So even though it probably took points off the board, which is tragic, then on the other side, hey, at least we're going to get the ball back probably on a short field if we play good defense, which we did. The stuff that was just backbreaking was the fumble and then the two tip passes. Receivers are open, the quarterback's making the right read on both of them, and those big guys up front got their hand up and created an opportunity for them to capitalize on, which they did on both of them. And we had some tip passes late in the game where we didn't get the ball, and so, I scratch your head on that. Candidly, those were, ball not bouncing our way, whatever you want to call it, good play by them, but it wasn't a bad play by us. It's not like they threw the ball directly to the guy in the other color of jersey, they're going where the read's telling them to go. They're throwing on time. And those guys made a play. And it's extremely frustrating, especially when you kind of look at the what if of, like, what if we just minimize this by 1? Just 1 less turnover, But that wasn't the case. And thought our guys were fantastic coming out at halftime. Wasn't like we got rolling right away on offense. We had to get 2 stops, and then we kind of put a drive together, and we're able to, shut them out in the second half and, put up 2 offensive touchdowns, which for us at this point, that's a big deal for us, right? We haven't been scoring a lot of touchdowns. And so that was really a positive thing to see. And I think it, like I said, it kind of breathed some life into our team, not just our offense, but our team. And I definitely think that there's a lot of hope in terms of what this young man can bring to us as we move forward.
Yeah, and if that quarterback change is coming, do you feel like you guys are just like solid, stable, turnover-free play at quarterback away from breaking that dam?
I think that's pretty obvious. When you look at, how turnovers impact the big picture, right? It takes possessions away from you. It forces you to play more defense, probably adds points to the opponent. And so when you start to look at that turnover margin, and we're atrocious right now, we're not taking the ball away at a really strong clip, but the way that we're giving it away makes it difficult for us. And so, you can't play football with 2 hands around your neck. You can't think about, oh, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. You got to go through your progression. You got to trust your reads. You got to make the decisions, right? And part of the decision, if it's not there, throw it out of bounds or take off with your feet and slide. So if I had the answer to the why, obviously we wouldn't be in this situation. But that's something that we're very, very aware of.
Yeah, I think you told Alex last night that you've been in this position before. I guess. What do you recall about being in that position before and staying optimistic and positive as the leader of the organization to keep pushing
they say
forward?
the body doesn't remember pain, but I remember pain. I remember the emotional pain of going through this process and how difficult it is. And really it comes down to being stoic about it and just understanding that, ultimately, my mindset and my demeanor and how I lead this organization is going to have an impact. And it can have a positive impact or a negative impact. So I've got to bring good positive energy every day. I've got to push and drive the coaches to find the answers, to get the most out of the guys in the microcultures in each one of the position rooms, and continue to believe that, hey, that breakthrough is coming. That breakthrough is coming. And I think that, we've been so competitive over the time that I've been here, but we haven't always got the payday. And that's the frustrating part, right? I get that. And so I just continue to lean into the fact that, what's delayed is not denied. Just because it didn't happen on Saturday night in Fresno doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
What's your message to Carter if he is the one who's starting? I mean, obviously the face of the team is the quarterback. It's a big responsibility for a guy that young. I guess, what are you telling him leading into this game?
Just be you. You don't have to be anything more than you. We got 10 guys around you to support you, and everybody on this sideline is going to be out there, believing in you and supporting you. And it's not going to be perfect, and we don't expect it to be. So go do your thing.
When it comes down to it, you spoke very well about who's coming, what's to come. What is the atmosphere, and how are you guys preparing for this next week?
We have a lot of good freshmen. I know that. Dom Kelly's starting to make some strides and play a little bit more for us at the running back position. DJ Asiasi's a guy that, easily could step in right now and be, if it wasn't for Jet and Jace, this guy'd be getting a ton of run. And on the defensive side of the ball, we've got a handful of guys that are maybe a little bit more role players, but a guy named Aiden Walker stepped in and played a bunch of corner for us, and that guy had a really good night. Like, he played really good football. And so, I think that, hey, there's some things that bode well for the future, but the message is, hey, we got to go compete and win right now, right? We've got a really good opponent coming in, a team that's on a little bit of a hot streak. They're playing with confidence. They're really a physical outfit. I think Coach Lewis has done a great job of building a roster there, and they have a lot of talent, specifically on the defensive side. I think they're loaded at each level of defense in terms of how they play the game, and they're very confident. And so it's going to take our best. There's no, college football nowadays, there are no weeks off. It does not matter who you're playing. You can ask anybody. Go ask Coach Sark at Texas if they thought they were going to get anything from the 1-3 Florida team they played the other day. It's just the way it is, And so every week's a new opportunity. But it's also, if you're on top, you better watch it because it's an opportunity to stumble. And if you're reeling a little bit, hey, it's an opportunity to get right. And that's the way I look at Saturday. It's an opportunity for us to go get right.
What was it about the quarterback play with AJ and Chuba through 4+ games that made you believe that, hey, I have to make a quarterback change to maybe the number 3 guy on Saturday?
Yeah, well, I think just ultimately, not that it's all on Chuba or AJ or Carter moving forward, if that's where we go. None of that is really, it's the overall production of the unit. And ultimately, there's 2 people that are going to be, responsible for that. And fair or not, it's the quarterback and it's me as the head coach. And so I think some of that comes down to, hey, what are the guys, not just that individual and not just us as coaches, because I believe in AJ and I believe in Chubba, but ultimately I just felt like we needed a spark, right? And those guys, they've done some really good things. There's been some things that haven't been what we want them to be. And maybe it was not an opportunity for us to see what that young man was capable of doing in kind of a little bit of a low consequence environment. Like, hey, look, you're down 20-3. Nobody really expects you to do anything. Just go out there and play with no worries. Just go let it rip, man. Have fun. And, he did. And like I said, kind of you could feel the energy that gave us on the sideline. And that was telling to me.
Did you anticipate playing Carter Jones to this extent this early in the season?
I think that the way I would answer that is to say that I knew at some point that there was going to be a point where he was going to emerge and be somebody that not just us as coaches, but also his teammates felt like, hey, this guy can go do this for us. And so I didn't, to put a timeline on it, you could see him improving week by week by week as we gave him more within the offense and we got him more reps in practice. And, you'd like to say, hey, gosh, it would have been nice to do that a couple weeks. Well, there's a learning curve that goes along with this, and I think that, this is probably the appropriate time to start rolling with this.
There was a play, I believe it was the Middle Tennessee game, where he was either in the backfield or in the slot, then you put him in motion going across Chubba. What was it about Carter Jones that made you believe that whether he's throwing the ball or not, he can still be on the field that early in the season and contribute?
Hey, he's poised, he's prepared, he's a good athlete, I just felt like we felt really good about getting him in this recruiting cycle, and we want to make sure that we, have things for him to grow within the offense. So whether that was going to be playing in 4 games or playing in more, we knew we were going to have him involved somehow.
With San Diego State, we've seen them win games where they've scored 45 points, games where they've scored 6 points and won. What do you make of their offense and just their ability to win in a variety of different ways? Well,
they thrive on big plays like a lot of offenses do. And I think a lot of it comes down to how do you defend Napier and then 17 and 14. Like they've got, and Napier's a guy that, they list him as the slot, but they'll move him around. And I think one of the things that Coach Lewis and his staff do a good job of is identifying the matchups that they want and then building formations and plays that get them the favorable matchup. And so that's something that you see week in and week out. There's a lot of things that show up in their offense that are base parts of their offense in terms of the run game and the throw game, but they are very much a game plan outfit. Like they're gonna go into it going, okay, we think we can exploit this, and if they get what they want, it usually works out pretty good for them. And that, a lot of that was what happened the other night against San Diego State or against Colorado State rather, there were some matchups that were not good for CSU, and they found them and they exploited them almost immediately in that game. And a lot of that had to do with stretching the ball vertical down the field. And so I see a lot of similarities in terms of their wide receiver group to the group that we played against Western Kentucky, which I was bullish on. That was a really good group of receivers. I like this group that they have there at San Diego State as well. Probably the difference is I think they're better on the O-line than Western Kentucky. And they've got and they do have a big physical back. They play a couple of different guys back there, but they'll give you everything. You got to prepare for the +1 run game. And you got RPOs, vertical shots, specials. I mean, they have a lot of offense that you have to prepare for.
Is it on? For the community, do you have any messages to them just going into these next couple of weeks? Just anything for the community?
Yeah, well, I'd say this. Number one, you only get 6 Saturdays in Mackey, and Saturday night's one of them. And so, come out and get a little tailgating and enjoy a great college football atmosphere. Number two, we got 7 games left. I think there's a lot of parity in this league. You got a really competitive, tough, hard-nosed football team. If you love defense, come out and cheer for these guys on defense. I think we've got the nation's leader in tackles for losses playing for us right now. That's pretty awesome, and to be able to come out and just support these guys, man. I mean, these guys, they play the game the right way. I think we were penalized 1 time on Saturday night. We had 1 penalty for 10 yards, they're playing with discipline. They're playing with great effort. And that breakthrough's coming, so be there when it happens.
How did you guys hear about Carter Jones in the recruiting process? You guys hit Texas a little, but not a ton.
Yeah, so there's a couple of tie-ins there. You might not even remember this guy. We had a guy named Jacques Smith that was our edge coach for about a month, and now he works for the Atlanta Falcons. So Ja is from South Dallas, and he was recruiting that area. And one of the guys that was down there said, "Hey, have you seen this kid at Lancaster?" And he said, "No, I haven't." And so we started kind of looking into him. Well, ironically, he's cousins with Anthony Hill Jr. And so Anthony's dad, I was obviously involved in recruiting Anthony, the linebacker at Texas, and Anthony's dad and I had a conversation. He's like, "I think this kid's the real deal." And so we started kind of watching him and developing a relationship with him, and offered him and went through the process, and that's kind of how it happened.
I think you said on signing day he plays in like the hardest district in the United States for
Yeah.
high school football. How much does that prepare him for being able to play as a true freshman?
Yeah, I think that was a lot of it, because Lancaster actually had moved up from 5A to 6A. And so they ended up with, in the same comp, they're in with Louisville and Duncanville and DeSoto. And I mean, they kind of had to run the gauntlet. And especially moving up a class his senior year. And, it didn't always go their way, but that guy hung in there and made plays. And you could tell, like, he wasn't rattled by the stage. He wasn't rattled by the level of competition. He just kind of was the same every game. And that kind of speaks to his demeanor and that poise that we talked about earlier.
And you're seeing something in the team and just responding to him in terms of like the excitement of what he could potentially
Yeah,
bring?
you could almost hear it on the sideline, and even in the locker room after the game. Obviously, guys are, it's that same old why, but maybe a little bit different vibe in terms of, well, hey, this guy might give us something.